Today, we are going to do an introduction to the essentials of business English. We'll be talking about the key topics and situations that you will need to learn if your goal is to work at a company or country where the main language is English. So if that's something you're interested in, then keep on watching. Hey, this is Michael with Michael's Business English. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Michael Frincon. I'm a former six-figure data analyst turned ESL instructor and career coach, and I support English language learners improve their career development through communications and language training. If you're new here, on this channel we talk about business English, communications, and career development. So if you are into that, make sure you like and subscribe, and all the links that we mentioned in this video you can find in the description box below. Stay tuned for the end, because I'm going to talk about a student of mine who went from being super shy at work to becoming ultra confident by improving her English in just a few weeks. So you might be asking, what exactly does essentials mean here, and why is this an introduction to the essentials of business English? So the reason I decided to make this video is because sometimes people are confused about what the difference is between normal English and business English and even career coaching. Right? These are all separate categories that deserve their own kind of like vertical, so to speak, meaning like there's a specific type of training that you need. So for example, when I got my TEFL certificate, I got teaching not just for general English, but also English for young learners, as well as English for like business English. There's also specific certificates I've taken for business English skill sets. So for example, I have training on hospitality English. And for career coaching, that's a completely different skill set altogether. And that assumes you already know the language and that you don't need help with that. And so that's why that's an important thing to separate right here. Is like, what is business English versus general English versus career coaching? Because you could be someone who needs business English but does not need career coaching, for example. So the essentials are, in my opinion, these are the key things that any English language learner who is interested in their career as it relates to American corporate work life in some fashion, whether that means you are a job-seeking professional, you work full-time, 9 to 5, maybe more, you're a consultant, maybe you do contract work, or you are a freelancer or solopreneur, or even an entrepreneur, and you do work, you do business with English-speaking countries, and that's the lingua de franca, which is the language of choice, right? So for example, if you are a freelancer in Fiverr, you're going to have a lot of people who are from America trying to recruit from you, and what I've seen happen is like I get messages in broken English, and I'm just like, I don't know if I should trust this guy. Another example I've seen is I'm in multiple Facebook groups for those of us who are interested in writing, right? So like for a while I was interested in being a blogger and writer, I wanted to be a freelance writer. I'm still in these groups that are paid for the course. And sometimes you'll see non-native English speakers who ask questions like, how do I know that my writing sounds American or sounds English, right? Like their writing is good. They're confident in their grammar. They can pass Grammarly. They don't need more help with like the English lessons. What they need help with is the communications. Like there's a modality, there's a nuance there that's a little specific. So that's why I think we need to have this introduction to essentials, because there are certain things that might be more important to more general language learners. There might be things that are more important to more job-seeking professionals. This is for those of you who are like, you got this stuff down, you're okay with the crowd, you don't need someone to help you with your resume, you don't really need someone to teach you like how to do interviews, you just need help with your communication skills in English. With that being said, I feel that there are two separate categories of essential business English that I'm going to cover. So the first part is what I call job seeker essential English. This is what is going to be things like the resume, your CV, your interviews. Like I said before, like you might be confident in your resume, you might be like, I can get jobs in my country. It's now just a question of translating it into English so it makes sense in the English language, understanding like not just the culture, the nuances, but also like the actual like the phrases, like so to some extent grammar, but more like even word choice. The separate second category is what I call on-the-job English. This is called more like on-the-job essentials. So you can consider things like etiquette, how to do presentations and meetings, customer service, and some special to nuances like proposals and pitches depending on your job. That might be important if you already have a job, as well as negotiations depending on the kind of work you do. So I worked in vendor management for a few years in operations, and being able to handle proposals, being able to write pitches for vendors and get contracts, get requests for proposals, and win negotiations so that we're saving money was part of my job on the job. So I put that under on the job essentials. So for this video, I'm actually going to cover the on the job essentials business English, right? So as opposed to the job seeker essentials, which if you haven't seen that video, you should go check it out, which covers specific topics like your resume, your cover letters, and interviews. This one's going to cover what I think are the common on-the-job issues that I've seen with most job seekers who are on the job, they need help with their career. Usually they fall into very specific categories, whereas my job seekers typically have a very like general path where they need to have help with pretty much everything. People who are on the job usually need help with very specific skills. This is also a little bit more advanced than job seeker essentials. So for example, in job seeker essentials, we talk about phone calls, how to handle phone calls. But a lot of my advanced students who need on the job help, they know how to handle phone calls. What they need help with is things like how to do customer service, how to handle negotiations, how to do a sell of the call. In fact, one of my first students was someone who was from Colombia, and she was a sales rep for a technology company. So we did role plays on how to sell products over the phone for her company. So for the on-the-job essentials, I've listed out these 6 modules, which I think are important. The first one is etiquette. This is another way of saying behavior, what's appropriate at work. And interesting enough, that this is more of a cultural class as opposed to a word choice class. But you will see some really important things where we talk about the importance of direct versus indirect English, right? Meaning how to the point, how hard we are asking for something, how strong is the demand. So for example, with etiquette, we might say, I need you to give me this result, I need you to give me the answer right away, is something we'd call direct, versus indirect might be more I think I could use this help as soon as I can. We're using more softer vocabulary to, instead of doing confident. So if you've seen the job seeker essentials, I talked about cover letters, talked about strong English, confident English versus I think versus I know. Etiquette's not about strong English, it's more about weak English. It's more about almost supplicating or deferring. When the next one I want to talk about is meetings, which this is all about the kind of terms that we talk about, how to lead a meeting, meeting notes, mostly vocab that we talk about, kind of idioms that you'll see. The next one after that is presentations, which is very similar to meetings, but this one is actually a much more reporting driven. So for example, most of the presentations module that we have at Michael's Business English is about explaining what the data means. And what I found with a lot of my students is that they're missing a lot of vocabulary. So they'll say something like it's getting bigger versus it's increasing, or something is shrinking versus something is getting smaller, right? So small nuances and vocabulary choices come out here. We also talk about how to use the different verb tenses that you can use in a presentation. We talk about the past, present, and future, which is a refresher for more general English and beginner English, but it's important to refresh, make sure everyone's on the same page, because sometimes a student can get up to the C1 level but still be missing gaps in knowledge. Another module we have in the on-the-job essentials is something called customer service, and this one is very similar to etiquette, but this one's more vocabulary choice and word choice, and as well as being able to understand when someone's saying something in English, is that what they're saying is an issue, or is it just they're saying something? Because one thing that I found in America is sometimes people say something and it's not clear if it's direct or indirect. It's not clear if it's a complaint or not. It could just be formal, it could be informal. The next one we have is something called proposals and pitches, and the reason we have them together is because it's very specific. They're very small and they're very similar together. So proposals are typically like a written document, where pitches are more like a phone call. You might be familiar with a sales pitch. Sometimes they can be both ways. Sometimes proposals can be vocal, they can be verbal, or even video driven, and pitches can sometimes be sent via email. The key things is we're talking about key vocabulary we're doing with each of these. That way, if your job relies on doing proposals or pitches, you'll have the vocabulary that you need to be able to do this correctly. And the final on-the-job essential I consider to be important is negotiations, which is all about like how to use words in English that we use to make changes with certain contracts or with situations. So you'll see like, I think we can do this a certain way. Lots of exercises there, so it's definitely worth checking that out if you had a chance. All right, so to conclude this video, we talked about the business English essentials. We talked about the differences between job seeker English and on-the-job English, and the differences between general English, business English, and even career coaching. So I hope you found this helpful. Make sure you check out the appropriate demo lessons below if you want to learn more about each specific topic. We have recorded all of these as demo lessons so you get an idea of what they look like, what to expect if you were to take lessons like this at Michael's Business English. Also, like I promised in the beginning of the video, I'm going to give you the opportunity to learn more about like how one of my students went from being shy, struggling to deliver presentations at work, to becoming very confident quickly through Michael's Business English. There's a link below to download the case study, which shows you exactly what my student did, the things that were essential for her in order for her to become a confident English speaker. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to check out the link below so you can get that case study. That way you can get an idea of what it's like, what the process is to go from being shy to being confident quickly. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you guys had a good day. Hope you enjoyed this. Send me any questions you have, leave a comment below. If you have questions, shoot me a DM. It's probably the best way to do it as well on LinkedIn. Right now, I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.